Alright guys, I'm a dad now, and my wife and I want to cultivate an environment in which our son can enjoy games the way we did so fondly in our youth. So when we have these small studios creating incredible games with comparatively minuscule budgets, we need to put our money where it matters, and stop giving it to big budget studios who peddle exploitative games as service trash that releases incomplete, broken and bug-ridden to the point where early adopters are paying a premium price to be treated as little more than beta testers for these so-called AAA games. We need to stop giving our money to scumbag multimillionaire CEOs who contribute nothing to their products, while treating them like their own personal piggy banks. These men do nothing but extract profits out of the company, which is money that should be reinvested back into the development of games, all while presiding over mass layoffs in spite of record profits, as well as harassment and abuse of their employees. Okay, now onto the video. Alright 200 IQ gamers, for the best part of the last 4 decades, Nintendo has been creating generation-defining RPGs with the Zelda series. So how did two stuffy Brits from the middle of England beat the original and reigning masters at their own game? Well, let me tell you, and pay attention guys, because this is important. You see, this game pays the highest respect to the developers of all the Zelda games. This game is the sweetest love letter to Zelda fans. This game combines all the very best aspects from the Legend of Zelda series into one incredible experience. This game, right? This game is awesome and should not be missed. So join me on this journey and let me enlighten you as to the wonders of Death's Door. Now, before all of the Zelda fans lose their minds at the mere suggestion that anyone could make a better Zelda-style RPG than Nintendo, hear me out and let me be clear. I'm a huge Zelda fan too. I completed everything from Link's Awakening on Hero Mode with 0 deaths to Breath of the Wild including the Trial of the Sword in Master Mode. And I agree that many of the games in the Zelda series are pioneering masterpieces that consistently introduced new innovative game design elements to the genre. Death's Door would not exist without Zelda. With that said, with every aspect of Death's Door, it feels like they have studied and distilled the very essence of what makes Zelda games incredible, while improving on one of the series' only shortcomings. And we as huge Zelda fans have to celebrate when a game inspired by the Zelda series is made as well as Death's Door is. Alright, let's start with performance. I love this game so much that I paid full price for it on both PS5 and Switch, and completed it 100% on both platforms, getting all of the achievements just to show you guys the differences. One of the most striking things about Death's Door is that it runs so beautifully on the Nintendo Switch at 1080p 30 frames per second, which admittedly is half the 60 frames per second you get on other platforms. Now, when Supergiant developed Hades for the Switch, they made the opposite compromise, choosing to reduce the resolution to 720p while keeping the frames per second at 60. This is not a criticism of Hades because it still runs extremely smoothly on the Switch, but I personally prefer the more detailed, higher resolution of 1080p and the drop down to 30 frames per second in Death's Door. As you can see, there are some color variations between platforms, but those are largely due to environmental effects in certain areas, such as clouds being projected onto the ground at different times. You're also missing some depth of field blur, reflections, as well as some minor environmental details and atmospheric effects on the Switch version. But I can't get over how absolutely stunning the game looks and feels to play on the Switch in both handheld and docked modes. Don't get me wrong, on other platforms you are getting the truest, most uncompromised experience of the game that the developers intended you to have. And sure, I'm not seeing some of the wispy wind effects, and there may be fewer rocks on the ground, but knowing I can take this wonderful game with me wherever I go on the Switch makes it my preferred platform. Now let's discuss the story and characters. You're a crow who works as a reaper collecting souls for the Reaping Commission headquarters, a bureaucratic organization that deals with the afterlife. As your colleague Chandler the Handler explains at the start of the game, whenever you're in the overworld you become mortal, can age and die, so you must be careful. You're sent to collect the giant soul of a monster, and upon defeating it you're knocked unconscious by a large old crow who steals the monster's soul and holds it ransom, as he explains that the soul he was sent to reap years ago disappeared behind a large ominous door, so he was never able to complete his contract. He tells the crow that they must make their way through 3 dungeons in order to collect 3 giant souls needed to open the door, which he believes will allow him to collect his designated soul, and then they can both return to the Commission headquarters with their assigned souls. It's brave to take on the subject of death as a basis for your storyline. It's braver still to not go down the easy routes of using cheesy cliches or being overly sentimental. Death's Door's story and dialogue is all at once pragmatic, philosophical, humorous, inspiring, and even charming in its coverage of the subject of death. At no point do you feel like you're being pandered to with a narrative designed to make you feel better about death or the hereafter. Instead, the player is presented with a respectful, realistic, but still uplifting fable that leaves few questions unanswered about exactly what has happened in this world. Some of the whimsical characters in Death's Door seem so familiar that it almost feels like they could have been lifted directly out of a Zelda game. They've kept the same short, witty dialogue you would expect, while injecting in some well-timed humour that often catches you by surprise in the best way. Now let's talk about combat. You see, while the combat in Zelda games is simple, satisfying and responsive, it always felt like an afterthought that took secondary importance when compared to other aspects of game design, like the puzzles, dungeons and boss fights, rather than being a core aspect of the game that was supposed to feel fun and entertaining itself. Conversely here, the original concept demo of Death's Door was built around the idea of taking simplistic Zelda-style hack-and-slash combat and making it feel tight, fluid, and most importantly exhilarating. I can honestly say I've never enjoyed combat in a Zelda game as much as I do in Death's Door. This leads neatly into the skill level. Over the past decade, there has been a trend in video games such as Dark Souls and indie titles such as Cuphead that the developers have designed to be so difficult that only a small percentage of players can defeat the final boss. It becomes a point of pride for the developers that so few players can beat the game, and is a source of free marketing as gamers rage about the difficulty online. But ultimately this means that most players will never get to experience all of the content. It's extremely rare to find a game that so perfectly treads the fine line between challenging and fun. You never get frustrated to the point of giving up in Death's Door due to the fact that while the game is not easy, the difficulty is never an issue because the combat is so much fun that you always want to jump straight back in and give it another try. They have absolutely nailed the skill level in this game, where the developers clearly want you to enjoy every second that you're playing and experience all of the content while still making the challenge difficult enough that you feel a sense of accomplishment when you eventually complete it. Now let's talk about the boss battles. Each one has multiple phases requiring different tactics and even some hidden features that you'll only discover by experimenting with your abilities. If you think you're going to get away with mashing the dodge button to escape damage, the game quickly teaches you that you're going to have to use some smart timing and finesse in order to beat each boss. In every battle, each phase synchronizes seamlessly with unique musical compositions that are triggered by your actions in combat. And let's talk about the soundtrack. Zelda games are known for their stunning orchestral overtures that evoke the fondest memories from our childhoods whenever we hear them. Death's Door's soundtrack has its own unique style which perfectly reflects the action on screen. While out of combat, if you're like me, you may find yourself putting down the controller just to listen to the music for a moment. What's even more impressive is that the soundtrack for Death's Door wasn't created by some legendary composer whose sole job is to write music. No, it was created by one of the two developers of the game itself, and it's epic. So epic that I purchased the soundtrack separately and have listened to its 50 songs on repeat since. Now while I'm coding at my desk, my mind can wander through memories of my time playing the game. The art style is also gorgeous, from the grayscale monotones of the Commission headquarters to the vibrant overworld. Every moment of this adventure looks like a beautiful painting. Ultimately, what you have with Death's Door is what feels like a Zelda experience condensed into only the very best parts. This is a Nintendo quality game and it deserves to sell well. You'll never get bored playing Death's Door because the core movement and combat is just so much fun. You're constantly eager to get in there and give each boss another attempt. And in the moments where the action does slow down, it gives you space to notice all of the other incredible aspects of the game, like the gorgeous art style, evocative storytelling, whimsical characters, smart puzzle design, and hauntingly beautiful soundtrack. So why am I hyping this game so much? Because an indie title of this quality should be celebrated and played by as many people as possible. Nintendo is so well established that millions will buy their games purely because they're made by the original Japanese masters, while not enough people take chances on indie titles from smaller studios. I want you to have as much fun as I do playing games, and this is a great one not to be missed. This is why Death's Door is our game of the year, but that's just our opinion. Let us know what your game of the year was in the comments below. Catch you guys next time.